Mike Wilson here, the host of the Stutter with Confidence podcast, and I'm excited today to be joined by Chase Gillis. Chase, I know you're pretty public on the Facebook groups, but for those that don't know you, please tell people where you live and what you do.
All right. Thank you, Michael. So for everyone that knows me and for everyone that doesn't know me, my name is Chase Gillis, and I'm originally from Vancouver, BC, but right now I'm kind of traveling around South America. So right now I'm in Argentina, and I help people who stutter in the way of not looking so much at the speech side of things, but looking more at the fear and anxiety and the self-doubt that gets in the way from you expressing yourself how you already know you can. So that's who I
am. So you're kind of traveling the world, enjoying yourself. I'm sure getting a lot of great fun speaking opportunities, perhaps in different languages as well. And you know, because of the beauty of modern technology, can coach people over the internet and help people on their stuttering journey. And I think I saw where you were interviewed on the YouTube by, I guess, not sure if you would call him a consultant, but a business coach or program or whatever that you were working with. And it sounds like you're doing well with it. So you're sort of living the dream. We'll talk about that. So for a long time, am I correct in assuming that you were like the rest of us, like the vast majority of the rest of us, you had deep shame and stuttering was completely, or your stuttering experience was such that stuttering was thwarting your life and thwarting who you were for a long time. Is that an accurate way to summarize?
100%, Michael. It was for me, just a quick background. I had a stutter my whole life, but I didn't really realize it till age like 13. 13 is when I would get picked on about it. And it became more apparent in my eyes that I'm not speaking like the rest of people. Like, I'm not just shy. Like, there's a reason why I'm shy. It's because I feel like I can't talk. It feels like there's a blockage there. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why I'm so shy, but there was something blocking me. And then I realized that I had a stutter. And from 13 to about 18, it just got progressively worse. And 18, when it was at its peak, I just couldn't keep going with the same severity that it was at. It wasn't so much this severity, even though I would say it was on and off, like very severe. It was, like you said, the shame and the doubt and the anxiety and the fear and the self-esteem, and what I feel I was capable of was just getting stunted. And I knew I just couldn't keep living like that. So you're right to assume that it was pretty overwhelming with the shame, 100%.
And was there a particular moment that sticks in your head, sort of a turning point? For some people, it's when they hit absolute rock bottom and they're like, I just got to stop, sort of getting bent over and taking whatever stuttering has to give me, so to speak. That's a little crude way to explain it, but looking back, it sure felt like I was being violated down to the level of my soul by stuttering for a long time. And I don't want to say it was the stuttering per se. It was my not realizing yet that it's just a stutter. It's not a reflection on who I am as a human being. Even if speaking is a struggle for me, I can still speak in this world, and people will still respect me for the most part. The vast majority will, if I respect myself, because they'll feel it. Oh, man, this guy's got some got some courage from just speaking up in front of these 20 people here, despite that pretty decent stutter he's got going. And mine was for sure a good stutter, even up until the age of 41. I had a good stutter. I had found my confidence. I had found my courage to stand up in front of that group and speak like this, but finish my sentences and use my tone of voice like this, right? Be me. Yeah, I don't know how to get this damn word out of my mouth. I want to, but I'm bringing it. Like Cheryl Gist said on the podcast, and she's like a 65-year-old African-American lady from Detroit. So she finally realized in her late 50s that, you know what, this stutter ain't going anywhere. I'm just going to bring that stutter with me. As that was her phrase. I'm going to bring that stutter with me. It's good stuff. And lo and behold, sounds like she's an infinitely happier person once she got to that point, And for a lot of people, you've probably met them, Chase, people that are in their 70s that are still completely hiding from the world. Their whole life has come and almost gone, and stuttering is still dominating. And that, I think, is what, it makes it so motivating to put this time and energy into helping people. Well, to put it bluntly, I like to think of it like going from that scared little boy or girl who's so worried about what everybody's going to think about my stutter. Are they going to like me if I stutter? Going from that just to a point where we're like, I'm going to bring that stutter with me, but I'm coming. I'm not leaving myself at home. And that's just a maturation process, but it doesn't happen naturally. It doesn't happen naturally for the vast majority of us who stutter. In my case, I needed somebody to bring me around campus at Florida State when I was a freshman, when I was 18, and make me ask people questions and learn to look them in the eye and realize people don't care about my stutter near as much as I thought they did. My stutter is not central to anything in this world, but they do care about what I have to say. And that was a key. Was that a key part of your journey? Just realizing, look, people are not sitting there ripping you up in their mind because you have a problem with your speech. Maybe there were 3 kids that were doing that when we were 13, right? But the whole world's not doing that. The vast majority of people are not doing that,
Yeah, I always find that so amazing how we completely lock onto those few experiences that someone was mean, someone laughed, we got mocked or whatever. And our brain just says, this is the way people are. And our belief system of how we're going to be treated, how we're going to be judged, how we're going to be perceived from other people is based upon those few traumatic events. And it's amazing how we can't see the 99.9% of people who don't care. But once we do see that, it's like a completely different world. It's living in a completely different world. And I think that's just the spot. That's the goal. That's the freedom spot, is when your inner belief changes of like you said, are they gonna like me? What are they gonna think of me? To like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I'm just gonna show up anyway. I think that's the ultimate freedom.
I totally agree with that. And, as you pointed out, in some of your some of your posts. So lo and behold, when you think like that, when you feel like that, right, that people, people really don't care, that it just doesn't matter. Lo and behold, it becomes typically a lot easier to speak, and certainly a lot easier to be yourself, and certainly a lot easier not to walk around just beating yourself up all the time as the ultimate, basically not full human or substandard human being, right? I think that's the biggest cancer, as far as I can tell, on a human mind. I mean, I don't want to say the biggest, because no, I think it's probably the biggest. It's probably even worse than say Alzheimer's, where you just don't know what's going on. You're not in pain anymore. Knowing what's going on and feeling like you're constantly underachieving, that you're not respected, and that your life is ruined, that you can't be you so long as you're stuttering. I think it's a total disaster for finding happiness and satisfaction. And it's a recipe for wasting our life, essentially, stuck in our own head. And so this idea that it's really counterproductive. I remember you saying that it's really counterproductive for people to judge the success of their speech journey based on how much they're stuttering. That they need to judge it by something else. Because if we're judging it based on our stuttering, well, I'll let you explain this. Why is that a problem to evaluate? Or how are we doing with our speech journey based on how much we're stuttering or not stuttering?
Yeah, I think this is so key. And when I wrote that post, I was like in a different mental state, because I realized how much this changed the way I view my stutter, and how much easier it was. I'm going to say overcome, meaning not let it control you. How much easier it was to overcome your stutter with this different way of judging your progress. So most people judge their progress on overcoming their stutter as how fluent they're being or how much they're stuttering. If they're stuttering less, they're doing better. What I have found in my life is that oftentimes and not just my life, but the people I've worked with as well, is we're masters at tricking ourselves in many ways. And one of the most common ways we trick ourselves is finding different ways to hide. And this could be word substitution. This could be not going out. This could be not going to that extra event at school that you want to go to. We trick ourselves, and this is just one way we could be stuttering less, is because we're not leaning against our edge as much. We're in our comfort zone more, and we're speaking to maybe just our family. And if we're very comfortable with our family and we're not stuttering, how can we say that we're overcoming your stutter? Because you're not facing what actually causes you the tension that makes you stutter, if your family is something that is easy for you to speak around. So I know for me, I thought I was overcoming my stutter, but I just was hanging around the same people, doing the same things, not going out, not going to the events I wanted to go to. And I thought my speech was great. I go to one party and I realize, holy shit, like I'm not even close to overcoming this. The amount of shame and doubt and anxiety I had to speak at this party was completely different than what I've been surrounded with. And that's just one way that judging yourself on fluency is futile. It doesn't get the whole picture. And also, we all know this. I don't have to explain this part. In order to in order to overcome the fear to stutter and really overcome the fear to be judged, we have to go and leave our comfort zone. We have to go and push ourselves. This means we're going to be feeling more tension. We're going to be feeling more pressure. We're going to feeling more embarrassment, more anxiety, which will cause us to stutter more. And this anxiety, tension, pressure that causes us to stutter more is a necessity, a necessary ingredient for growing, because you're outside your comfort zone. And if we get down on ourselves while we are growing, this growth does not happen. Like, if you believe you didn't grow, you didn't grow. It's such a mental game. But if you believe you did grow, you start seeing ways that you did. So removing the fascination of fluency, because you understand you must stutter more to overcome stuttering. You must go and push yourself in those uncomfortable spots, stutter more openly, in order to overcome your stutter. It really allows you to see what's actually where the growth is and what you should measure yourself on. And it takes a lot of pressure off of you of trying to be fluent, which of course just naturally will put you more at ease and make it more effortless to speak when you don't have that over fascination. I said that word wrong.
Over fascination, I guess.
Yeah.
Positive, that's a word, but I totally know what you mean. So that's the point of saying words, is to communicate. But I totally hear you on that. I think that and I like to say on phase one of my program, if anything, I want you stuttering more, way more, so that you have to face it. Because so long as the athlete is really scared about making mistakes on the court or on the field, guess what's going to happen? Right? You can't reach your physical potential so long as your mind is freaked out about, quote, mistakes. And stuttering is not even a mistake. We are people who stutter. We're supposed to be stuttering. Otherwise, we would lose the diagnosis. That's like saying, or from a logical standpoint, it's like someone in a wheelchair whose legs aren't functional, them beating themselves up. God, I'm such a loser that I can't walk to the bathroom here. I have to roll to the bathroom. It's like, well, no, you're not a loser. You just, legs don't work as well as you would hope. And, so we're supposed to stutter. So we certainly shouldn't feel like crap every time we stutter. What we should feel proud about on the flip side is standing up and saying that thing that we want to say, even though we know damn well we're going to stutter, which in high pressure, the classic time when even non-stutterers oftentimes stutter some when they're under a lot of pressure. For us, it's certainly very challenging oftentimes, but we can actually develop a superpower, right? I mean, the number one fear, maybe right behind death, right? In the top two of every poll, from what I understand ever, about greatest fears is public speaking. And that's for people with no stutter. And for us, it's like, why would they be scared of that? They don't have a stutter, but it's there, right? It's there. So that's very normal for us to feel pressure and all that kind of stuff in those situations. And it's normal for us to maybe stutter more, and where the superpower can come in is when you're have an issue like this, where you gotta grow a big pair of testicles or ovaries, let's say, and go face this. You and I, everybody who stutters knows, takes a hell of a lot of courage to just stand up in front of the 30 people that don't know you, say what you want to say, and risk stuttering and stutter, right? But it's kind of like with Teddy Roosevelt, the president 120 years ago or so, who grew up, with a lot of physical problems. He was little, he was made fun of for being weak. His, older family members kind of looked down on him as little weak Teddy. And he took that and he said, I'm going the other way. I'm going the opposite direction. And he became just a legendarily robust, man, mapping the Amazon, big game hunting in Wyoming. He used to do what they call them, the polar bear swims in the wintertime in the Potomac by the White House regularly, because he went the other direction. We can go the other direction and we can become far better than average public speakers, right? Because we're putting ourselves out there all the time, whereas most people are not. So they have to give a speech, and it's like, I'm giving a speech since 14 years ago at my buddy's wedding. It's like, whoa, I don't know if I can do this. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? On how we can take for many of us, deformed character at one point and develop it into like a super character.
Yeah, so I've talked about so many different ways that stuttering can be a superpower. And I think we've had a conversation before this, like maybe a year or two ago, where we talked a lot about that. But you said something that reminded me of something in my past. You said we have the ability to become better than average speakers. And I think that is so, so true because, well, I know it's so, so true because it rung a bell that back when I was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I couldn't really talk to anyone, especially girls on the street that I thought were cute. So, and the therapy I was taking in speech therapy wasn't working, and the YouTube videos weren't helping me. I went down a different route and I tried to learn game. I tried to learn how to pick up women, the best things you can say to women, how to make women like you, so that if I can't overcome my stutter, at least I'll be really good at game. And I can go down a whole path with that and how that helped me and how it didn't. But I remember one video I was watching with, if anyone knows, RSD Owen, he was talking, or RSD Tyler, he was talking about, he was holding this boot camp with hundreds of people. And there was this one, he singled out one person and brought him on stage. And this one person was so insecure that he couldn't laugh. Like he could smirk a little bit, but he couldn't laugh. Like everyone was laughing, but he was straight faced because his brain, of course, was just so like thought that was such a vulnerable thing to do. How can he smile? How can he show his emotions to other people? He was so withheld and hurt inside. And he brought another person on stage who was this confident person, just felt like more naturally, he could speak more clearly. And RSD Tyler pointed at this guy, the very repressive guy, and says, this guy can grow so much more than you. This guy has the capacity to grow so much more than you, than the person who's already kind of feels like he's good, because he has so much fuel. The guy who's so repressive, he has so much fuel in the form of pain. Pain is the best motivator and fuel to get you going. And this guy has years and years of pure pain, of pure suffering, that once he says, okay, enough is enough, let me take this to the next level, and he invests in something, or he goes and takes action, or he just puts all into something, he has the capacity to grow so much more than someone who didn't feel that pain and that drive to say, let's go 100% all the way in. And most people who are born fluent aren't like, I'm a terrible speaker. They're just like, I'm an okay speaker. Sometimes I stutter, but it's nothing. They don't have that drive to be like, I want to become a great speaker, like people who stutter do. And I found this inferiority complex maybe in many parts of my life, like growing up to be a little vulnerable and a little personal. I had some like erectile dysfunctions growing up with all the pressure and just the stuff I was seeing and the stuff I was comparing myself to. And I started very low self-esteem and vulnerable and scared in terms of being intimate with the woman. And feeling so low, of course, I invested in tantric stuff. I invested in workshops, and invested in how do I become much better at this. So I completely um, agree with, we have the capacity to become such a above average speaker once we hit that point of saying, okay, I'm going to use this pain and use it to absolutely push me into a spot where I say, enough is enough. I'm going to put my all into this. If we hit that point, we're going to become an amazing speaker.
That's good stuff. And I like that idea of the pain being fueled. Now, pain can also obviously keep people from starting in the first place a lot of times, right? It keeps them locked in fear and pain, and they don't take those key steps to start the process. But once, for those that eventually decide to do something. Now, this is another question. People don't know what to do exactly because they've gone to speech therapist after speech therapist after speech therapist a lot of times. And they feel like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard in support groups, I've tried speech therapy. It didn't work for me at all. So I think a lot of people have given up because they're like, well, if the speech therapists, if the professionals can't help us, is, some random guy that calls himself a coach from, Syracuse, New York, in my case, or Vancouver in your case, or, I suppose you're now a citizen of the world with your traveling, but people have been beaten down, and a lot of them don't take that stuff. But for those that do, and I think, whether it's Joseph Sheehan or Charles Van Riper, some of the biggest legends and people that had, I think, the most success, or a lot of success with people who stutter, helping them to live a better life. And those guys have been dead for 25 to 40 years or something. But that realization that it's about, whatever causes stuttering, right? And that's debated hotly. I know, and you said, as you did, we were natural little kid stutterers, right? I was stuttering from what I hear when I was 3 or 4, but it was more like this, and just kind of talking like that, and stumbling forward sort of with my words a lot, And I did that, I think, for 10 years, and I was the class clown and all that in 3rd grade. But then I got to the 4th grade and started getting made fun of for the first time, and suddenly the world was a different universe after that, So I think the initial basis of our stuttery little kid thing probably was a genetic predisposition. There's pretty good evidence for that, and I still feel like that when I get going too fast. Some people can just talk real fast and do that. For me, I start stumbling a lot when I try to go too fast, and the rate I'm going at now is borderline for me. But then the iceberg formed deep and dark, right? And like you said, it was probably forming even before you realized that it was forming, right? Just this, oh, I guess, talking's not my thing. I won't say things here and there. And maybe we were just holding back. I was a holding back personality also. For example, in sports as a kid, I wasn't a hustler. I wasn't like throw myself in there and play harder than any kid on the field. I was like, no, I could go right, I could go left, or I could shoot. What should I do? And meanwhile, I'm just sitting there holding the ball, not doing anything. And I'd be like, Michael, do something now. I gotta do something. Right. I was sort of a sit back, analyze, not jump in Rocky style, assertive. And so I had to develop that. So like you said, though, that pain, and I never thought of it in those terms, that the pain of I have thought that the pain of those years between 11 and 18 for me, which was when I was in hell with my speech and, all the same issues, not comfortable at all to talk to girls, even though I wanted to so bad, I knew I had good things to say. I knew I could make them laugh. I knew I was cooler than that kid over there that was getting girls, but I wasn't. But for those years, those super painful years, that was sort of stoking the fire in some ways. It was providing a base of energy for the rest of my life. Because I know the other side. I know how shitty life can be. And I know that it's not like that anymore. And we're only going to be alive for so long. We're all going to end up 6 feet under at some point. And if there is life after death, well, we're not going to have a physical mouth and we're not going to be breathing on earth and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be different. It's the one time we get to do it like this. Unless reincarnation is real, which one never knows. But anyway, so yeah, I love that idea. And like you said, if you see the pain as fuel, that perspective is so much different than seeing the pain as an almighty oppressor that I can never stand up to. What's the point? Just give up, be a victim. My life is ruined because I was born with a stutter. And would you say that overcoming the sort of victim mentality, woe is me, an old expression, the smallest violin in the world is playing just for us? Would you say that's a big part of the journey? Just saying, you know what? Yeah, I got a stutter. Not saying it's ideal, but damn it, I'm not going to be a victim, period. Yeah. And if somebody has a problem with my stutter and they're going to be a jerk to me or not hire me, well, I don't want to work at your company then, or I don't want to be your friend. So get out of here and don't let the door hit you in the rear end as you leave,
Yeah. I 100% agree that getting out of that victim mentality is key. And I believe one of the best ways to do it is, and I know you also see a lot of benefits in having a stutter as well. Like there's a lot of superpowers that come from it, is to be extremely clear and remind yourself daily, if necessary, of what opportunities we have that people who stutter don't. I mean, people who don't stutter don't. And also understanding that what matters most in the conversation is not, and what matters most and what's going to get you the most respected and what's going to make people be like this, I want to be friends with this person, isn't even, I think it's like 9% or something, what you say. The rest, or the majority of it, is how you say it and how you make the other person feel. And then initially, if a person who stutters says it's how you say it, I can't speak properly, that's not where I'm going at. How you say it, if that's what you focus on, is how you're speaking, you must understand people are going to sincerely respect the hell out of you if everyone's speaking fast and you're in your frame and you're speaking slowly and you're speaking at the pace you want to do. If you're stuttering on purpose, if you are just calm and relaxed when everyone's frantic, that is what is going to get people to remember you, because you are controlling how you're representing yourself. You're controlling your own frame. You're controlling who you are. And most people are just uh, a little silly output of everyone else. How is he speaking? How is she speaking? Okay, how can I speak around the same so I don't get judged as being different? To overcome stuttering, you have to be different and you have to be okay with being different. And that is I believe one of the best ways to get out of that victim mentality is to understand being different is the best thing that you can be. It's going to get you the most attention. It's going to get the most people to respect you, the most people to look up to you. If you're able to just be yourself and speak how you want to speak, even if it's stuttering, even if you stutter, it's still different. And if you own that, that gives you such a superpower and such an advantage over most people. So the victim mentality is for sure something that keeps the majority of people who stutter held back, but understanding the benefits that can come from working on your speech, working on your stutter, working on your self-esteem, working on your self-worth, understanding the benefits and the respect you can gain from other people, it becomes a no-brainer. It becomes an absolute no-brainer. And if you're hiding yourself and if you're holding back and in this victim mentality, you will be unable to be vulnerable. You'll be unable to share yourself. You will lack true connection, and you will lack the actual the human desire to feel accepted from other people, because you're not showing your true self. You're always showing a front, and you cannot feel accepted if they accept your front. The only way for you to feel truly accepted is if you show your true self, stutter and all, and you see that some people will accept you. That feeling and that sense of belonging you will have from stuttering openly and seeing people still want to hear you speak, that is what you need to heal those wounds of those times people laughed at you. You need to be open. You need to get out of that victim mentality in order to heal yourself.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, that what reminds me of another quote that you had, which is along the lines, or this leads into nicely. You said, when you are speaking to someone, do not take their satisfaction as your responsibility. And, that was a key part of my journey, is like, look, if I think it's worth saying, I'm going to say it. Some people are going to, like it. Some people might not. But it's not the end of the world if somebody doesn't like it. You're never going to satisfy. Nobody that's ever lived has been able to make everybody happy. And in fact, the more out there you are, the more you achieve, the better you do in your life, oftentimes, the more people might dislike you, right? If you rise to the level, for example, of presidency of the United States nowadays, at least half the country is going to hate your guts, right? So it's like, that's the most powerful political position, I think, in the world still. And yet half the people are going to hate you, or you're a great movie star. Well, I guarantee for every great movie star, there's millions of super negative comments online about that, right? So, but you can't, do do things. You can't do the things that you really want to do. I mean, everybody's different, but for many of us, we have some sort of dreams of achieving things in life, and you can't do that without, annoying a few people. But when you are yourself, and when you put yourself out there, and you're authentic, right? I think that's a key thing, right? And I love that quote, when you're putting a front out there, then even if people accept that front, which is what we're going for, usually when people put up a front, they're looking for acceptance. And yeah, okay, that front gets accepted, but that's not really you, right? Or maybe you don't know that's not really you, and then you're just confused as to who the heck you are, which isn't good either. But when you're putting your real self out there and people respond to that, well, you get those truly deep, high quality human connections. And I think there's abundant evidence now that people that live longer, on average, the number one factor is how deep are their social connections, social bonds, right? Even more important than, super important things like the exercise and diet and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a recipe for a much happier life, for achieving more, for gaining people's respect, being a source of inspiration. And then you're not just helping yourself, but you're helping and inspiring others around you. So that's, doubly, triply, do your multiple of how many people you can inspire. And that's good, satisfying, deeply satisfying life stuff. Essence, make it more higher sounding word.
Yeah. I loved everything you said there, Michael. One thing I'm going to quickly touch on again is you brought up a post about don't take the satisfaction of other people into your responsibility. And I made that post and it resonated so strongly with so many people that I just want to quickly touch on it now and how I came up with that post. So it was, as I'm traveling around South America, I wanted to learn how to dance. And I've always been a terrible dancer, like so stifled, the most stifled dancer you could think of. I would need 10 shots in order to get on the dance floor. Like I could not dance. Such a stereotypical like white kid who can't dance. That was me. So when I learned a dance called bachata, which is a very sensual dance. You're very close with the woman and you're leading and she has to follow. And I danced bachata for about 4 months and I still didn't know. Like I still felt like a complete beginner. Other people who danced for 4 months look like they're been dancing for years compared to me. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, why can I not learn? Why can I not move freely on the dance floor still? And this is what made me make the post is I was like, holy shit. It's the same mindset that I'm in now that I was in when I couldn't speak. I couldn't get that progress is because I'm on the dance floor, dancing with her, looking into her eyes, trying to guess what she wants me to do, what would make her the happiest. I was dancing in order to avoid her thinking and in order to avoid rejection. So I would do the safe moves that I knew how to do. I wouldn't do moves that made me happy. I would gauge who she was and be like, okay, I'm going to assume you like these moves. But all that did was it put me in my head, and that made something that is a natural thing to do a mechanical process. And that shit is how my speech was going too, because I was taking this girl as it's my responsibility that you're happy with this dance, rather than trusting myself that if I'm having fun and if I'm doing the moves that I want to do that brings me the most joy, and I'm paying attention to our connection, then I should trust myself she will also be having the most fun as well. Because it truly is. She doesn't want to lead a person she's dancing with who is thinking about what do you want. She wants to be led. She wants to give herself to you and say, take me wherever you want to go. And when you're speaking to somebody, it's like, and you put the burden of responsibility on yourself to make them happy, it's like you're a Klingon to them. And it's like you're not your own person anymore. You're going to be trying to please them. You're going to be trying to make sure they're always okay. You're going to be changing the way you're speaking to try to make sure that you're avoiding the most amount of judgment. You're going to be avoiding saying words because you don't want to make them feel awkward if you stutter. And you're putting their satisfaction as your responsibility. And again, you're making something that is a natural process all mechanical. And the moment that goes all mechanical is the moment you're in your head and you're locked. And of course, there's always times to like practice a more conscious way of speaking, a slower way of speaking, stuttering on purpose way of speaking, which could be more mechanical. But this is something that once you do for a while, your brain understands, I don't need to be mechanical. I can trust myself that I can speak how I need to. But yeah, I just wanted to share that story, like over how I overcame the stutter is I took my responsibility to make the other person satisfied always out. I took that out of my responsibility. And I said, I'm going to trust myself that what I say will draw in the right people and will filter out the people that aren't right for my life right now. And I have to be okay with that. Like you said, some people will hate you, but you have to be okay with that payoff of that some people will absolutely love you.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And when you do that, ultimately, more people end up, at least in my experience, and it sounds like in yours, you know, probably those ladies that you were dancing with suddenly were enjoying that dance more with Chase when your top focus wasn't on making them enjoy the dance. It was on doing my thing, getting into the moment here with this person, and then it's more authentic, and people respond, right? Human beings are on a string with each other, especially when they're dancing, especially, but even just face-to-face conversations, we respond to each other. And they've actually done a solid amount of research that, from what I understand, for example, when two people are strapped up to brain scans at the same time looking at each other, when one person smiles, part of their brain that lights up also lights up in the listener's brain. So our brains are literally on a string together. And so the more comfortable we are, the more authentic, the more we do that, the more our potential shines through and our skills, abilities shine through. And that, other people resonate. Most other people will resonate with that more. And, and again, for those that don't, okay, to each his own or her own. And, many other folks in the world, you find the ones that click with you, I'll find the ones that click with me, and no hard feelings. And the dancing thing's one that I've also, and you're making me, Chase, I've got, 500 of these or whatever, different studies. Like, I'd love to know the truth on these things, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. And this is, of course, speculation, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if the higher percentage of folks who stutter also were real uncomfortable on a dance floor. Now, I'm sure there's exceptions to that, where some people feel like that's where they can express themselves on the dance floor. I know I had that same thing that you've experienced, just sort of feeling stiff out there. I'm like, oh, like a fish out of water, and just not being comfortable exploring and pushing myself out of my comfort zone, especially as a young man. As I get older, I give less and less of a crap. But that's one that I've never, addressed in a systematic way like you did, where you started dancing like that for months and like, I'm gonna get over this. You've sort of helped spawn a new goal in my mind here, Chase.
Yeah,
So
I would challenge you. I would challenge you, Michael, to pick up some type of dance. It is something that has really opened me up, and it's a completely different energy that you have, that you can pick up when you face that tension of being physically judged by the way you move.
and we won't get overly explicit here, obviously, but can you summarize, another way of holding back, which you had mentioned earlier, some sexual challenges when you were a young man, linked with the holding back, I'm sure worrying about, am I going to satisfy her? Am I good enough? All that kind of stuff in those moments. So, can you summarize in a PG rated sort of way what helped you get beyond it in that case? Was it just sort of getting out of your own way and focusing on the moment and the beauty of the person in front of you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so that was something that stifled me for a long time, was the erectile dysfunction part of it, because I was just so caught in my head about, again, it's the same thing with dancing, and it's the same thing with speaking too. I was taking 100% responsibility for the other person's satisfaction. And it sounds crazy when I talk about this, because it's like it's the job of the man to satisfy the woman. But as you said too, we are connected. And how do I say this very non-explicitly? It's like, I'm gonna say it, you can cut it out if it's too explicit. It's like when you're having intercourse and the girl is getting closer and closer and closer, you are also, when she's at that peak, it's like you can't hold it back anymore. You hear she's right there. It's like, okay, I can't hold it anymore either, because you're connected and you feel her enjoyment, you sense her pleasure going up and up and up, and yours is connected with that too. Why can't we trust? And I wasn't in that mind frame young when I was younger. I was like, I need to make her feel good. I'll put the pressure on not getting rejected in order to make this a good experience for her. When that's not what she wanted. It's like dancing, or most girls want to be led. And I just needed to learn to trust myself, that if I'm having pleasure and it's someone that I'm connected with, she will also be having pleasure. Because I know when she's having pleasure, I'm having pleasure. And to trust that when we're connected, that if I go inside of me and I say, what do I like to do? What do I want to do? Since we're connected, it's also going to be what she feels is right at the same time. And to trust myself that I don't need to be anyone that I'm not. I don't need any technique. I just need to be present. I need to be here. And I need to just tap into the connection of it and trust my first instincts. And a big part of overcoming that sexual dysfunction was learning to just push myself outside my comfort zone and do comfort zone challenges. That it didn't cure all the sexual dysfunction, but it definitely gave me a good start. Was doing like embarrassing things in public and seeing that rejection didn't kill me. And that was a great start to a journey that I took on. Like, yeah, there's been a bunch of journeys that I've taken on: the sexual dysfunction, the stuttering, the dancing, and it's all something I felt inferior at. So I'm so grateful that I have been in that spot. So I have the ability to learn and grow so much more.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Those at least three sort of parallel, very similar journeys we've touched on here that you've had in your life. Yeah, and so I was speaking with another guest recently on the podcast, and they pointed out a study from about 2002 or so. I'm forgetting the lady's name that did the study, but they were looking at the percentage of children who stutter that are diagnosed highly sensitive people, and it's way higher. And I think that might be the only study where this has been even looked at, but it was way higher for kids who stutter than kids who don't stutter. Something like 2.5 times more or so prevalent. And that sensitivity will oftentimes apply to a variety of things. You know, that was part of my problem in sports, was I was holding back. I was, well, I don't want to make myself look stupid if I try that new move that I've been thinking about using. Therefore, you don't ever try that move. Therefore, you never develop that skill. It totally holds you back. And just in the performance of things I did know how to do, you know, like shooting the ball is one of my strong points, if you will, in playing basketball. But at times when I was thinking, man, what I'll miss this shot, or what if I miss 4 in a row? What are people going to think about me? Suddenly, my shot is crap. You know, I had to develop, and in that case, I did. And there's another thing that we can talk about, Chase. This idea of technique or no technique, right? Which is a hot button issue in the stuttering world. And so, for example, with shooting the basketball. Now, as I described, a lot of it was in my head, right? I knew how to shoot, I'm a good shooter, but when I'm in my own head, I'm significantly worse at shooting a basketball. And so I had to learn how to get out of my head. But one way that I got out of my head was to simplify the process. So, and there was an aspect of technique. So for me, it was land in the place where I jump, so I'm not falling forward or fading away or falling left or falling right. I'm going straight up and down as if I'm in like a tube here, straight up and down, and feel touch. Feel the touch as it's leaving my fingertips. So for me, I have to quiet down my mind a little bit and get focused on the basics. And for me, I'm a much worse shooter when I'm fading or leaning in or falling left or right. I'm a better shooter when I'm just, straight up shoot it. And so those are my 2 thoughts when I'm shooting the ball best. Those are my 2 thoughts: land in the spot where you jump, feel touch. That's it. Now, that's a technique, if you will, quote unquote, right? I'm focused on something physical here. I'm paying attention to something, but it's almost like by simplifying it, for me at least, when shooting a basketball, that really gets me in the zone a lot more. And in my case, I had a similar experience with my speech. As I said, I had a good stutter going, real good for those first 41 years, even though I wasn't holding back. I mean, I was struggling over words still, but I was holding my breath. I was trying to lift weights to get the word. I call it lifting weights with my face to push the words out. So I did sort of need to hit the reset button a little bit from a physical standpoint. I needed to stop trying to push words out. But when I have that sense I'm about to stutter, rather than pushing it out, go pause and release my air for a second to gather myself, take a breath, and hit it a circle. Right. That's my version of shooting the basketball. The land in the spot where you jump and feel touch is hit the reset when you need to. Right. Because I do feel like I have a genetic propensity for sure to stutter. Plus, I have 4 decades of habits of talking a certain way, holding my, trying to push the word out with no air and forcing it out, sort of a thing. So for me, it has been useful to do that. But what I found, I've seen this in a lot of other folks too, when the goal is to hide the stutter, right? When the goal is to do that in order to fool this person you're talking to so that they'll think you're a non-stutterer, well, that's when nothing works. Even the best technique that you've ever found is not going to hold up when the goal is to be fake and to fool people. Now, when the goal is just to, hit the reset button, if I have another issue, no worries, hit the reset again, maintain eye contact, hang in there, say what I want to say for sure, not running away. That's a very different thing. And maybe a technique, if it's a really good one, might benefit some people. But a lot of people, I will say, I think quite a few people, especially I don't know. I don't, this is really hard to say, but I think some people don't need any technique whatsoever to just sort of grow out of their stutter, even when they're older. And when I say grow out, I don't mean never stutter anymore, but get back to maybe their organic baseline level of stuttering when they were 3 and they had no fear, when they were 5 and they had no fear, rather than having the, knock down, drag out. My whole body has just been taken over by the stuttering wolf sort of blocks that many of us as adults have.
Yeah. As you were talking there, Michael, I had like legitimately 6 different tangents to go on, so I have to pick one now. I mean, I think I'll pick 2. I'll go with the first one real quick. I read this book called Zen Golf, and it's about mastering the mental game of golf, which is like 99% of golf is mental. And it talks about that when you like the one of the best things that you can do if you're a golfer is to work on getting yourself out of the rough, is to have the ability that you're a good rough player, to know that if you go into the rough, you will be fine because you've practiced in the rough so many times and you have that confidence. So when you're teeing off, you're not thinking, don't go in the rough, don't go in the rough, don't go. You're not thinking that. You're thinking, okay, I'm gonna hit this shot. What should I actually focus on? And you're removing a lot of doubts and negative anticipation. And how this draws into speaking is the rough could be a situation where you feel you're blocked up. And if you feel like going into the interaction that no matter what outcome or what lane this conversation or your speech goes down, you will be fine because you've practiced in the rough, because you have certain, maybe it's intentions you can go back to, or maybe it's certain ways of speaking that you can go back to that give you that reset that will make you, that you know you will be fine if you speak this way in. Maybe it's slowly, maybe it's prolonging your words, whatever. It's like it's preparing you for the rough and giving you that type of confidence that if you do end up in the rough, you will be completely fine. And what tends to happen with that, when you have that reset button just ready to go, and you have that, you stop thinking about the worst case scenario so much. You stop thinking about what if it goes into the rough, because you know you have the ability to hit that reset. You know you have the ability to use that slower speaking style or whatever you may have to do to put yourself into that mental state to again start expressing yourself the way you want. That's the first. I think I added a few tangents into that, but I agree that having certain intentions and ways of speaking that you can fall into once you are caught in like I call it a stuttering state, not just like you stutter here and there and it doesn't bother you. And now if you stutter one time, you're like, oh God, I have to remember to speak a certain way. I'm talking about if you're in a state where you feel the stuttering has taken you over. It's taken over your breathing, it's taken over your thinking, it's taken over your pace of what you're speaking with and what you're speaking like. Then have a few reminders in your brain and have a few things to fall back on of what is going to allow me to feel safe right now. What can I do so my brain and my body can remember, doesn't matter if I get judged. How can my internal being feel safe? What can I fall back on? And I often love like speaking very slowly and stuttering on purpose. So your brain can see, hey, I just stuttered and I did it in my control. And they are still speaking to me. And you do it again, you do it again, and you realize it actually doesn't matter. So I think that is amazing, and that allows you to have more confidence in the rough, instead of thinking, if I go in the rough, I'm screwed because I can't get out of those bad stuttering moments. If you have confidence and you know how to play in the rough, then you're a lot less likely to end up in the rough. With that being said, I love to take the mindset, and this is again from the book Zen Golf, that you already have you already have a perfect swing. This is the biggest thing Zen Golf talks about, is you already have a perfect swing. It doesn't say the perfect swing, it says a perfect swing. You have a perfect swing. Your natural self, yourself, without the doubts, without the anxieties, without the fear, you can swing that ball and land it most of the times around where you want it, even if you don't have the greatest technique, when you're out of your own head. And it's only when you start trying to control the little micro mechanics in your swing is when the interference comes in. And it's the same thing with the speaking. I love the intention coming in with, I already have the perfect, the perfect expression. And what the perfect expression is my expression, just trusting myself without allowing the fear and doubt, anxiety to control how I express myself. And knowing that my natural state is the best state, and I just need to fully trust myself, dancing, sex, talking. I feel like that is the answer, is just to fully embodily trust yourself that you have the perfect swing, you have the perfect technique, you have the perfect speaking expression. And yeah, I went on a few tangents.
Loving that one. But yeah, man, how to get out of our own way. It's the way I like to describe it, and just, not hold back and be ourselves. And it's also about being present, right? Like, I think back to some sports when I first started, like golf. I've played a good bit of golf. I remember not being a student of the game at all at first. I would swing, but I wasn't really aware of anything that was going on. There was no fear, but there also wasn't awareness. So it's a combination, I think, of getting out of our own way. And there's another really good sports psychology book called The Inner Game of Tennis by a guy named Tim Galway. I wrote it in the 70s and became a huge hit. And, like many corporations have brought him in and that sort of thing. But there's a lot in his book about don't judge yourself, right? Like how many times on the tennis court have you seen somebody, they hit a shot into the net, they're like, God, Jim, why don't you, do your forehand in a certain way, that sort of thing, really beating himself up rather than just like being aware of what happened. Okay. Like I did a little flip thing there. All right, ball went into the net. Okay. Next point, right? Like just move on, learn from those moments in a non-judgmental, non-emotional way. I say non-emotional, we're emotional creatures, but be emotional only in the sense that we're enjoying ourselves. We got a smile on our face, but not judging whether we're perfect or not. I think perfectionism is another big aspect there. And so it's super important to find a way to unleash, those natural abilities. And John Harrison I had on the podcast, and he's big on have fun. If you're dancing, have fun. If you're having sex, have fun. If you're talking, have fun. If you have a presentation, have fun, right? When you're having fun, it's so much easier to be yourself. And fun or terror or anxiety or, overconfidence or underconfidence. We're making choices, whether we know it or not. Now, yes, our brain and our chemicals and all that kind of stuff is influencing us, but we can become the captain of our ship. And we can find through experience, through, just figuring out the art of getting out of your own way and not giving a damn and realizing it just doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter, right? Whether I stutter some or step on the girl's foot or, have an off moment in whatever area. It's not going to kill me. And I remember you saying that in a quote also, that our brains are wired for survival, right? We are operating with genetic and physiological material that basically hasn't evolved as far as we can tell in hundreds, a heck of a long time, hundreds of thousands of years. And our ancestors, our species evolved at a time that was so much more dangerous and life was so much more precarious. And if you were too different, maybe you get cast out of the tribe. And if you're cast out of the tribe, you're dead, right? Either the neighboring tribe's going to kill you or enslave you, or the animals are going to get you. So we're wired to like, I got to fit in, got to be liked by everybody. And for survival, that works, right? If you're a 4-year-old, 20,000 years ago or whatever, and you realize that the elders and older people and other kids don't like it when you stutter, you feel some shame, well, you shut up so that you don't show your stutter to people, and you just, become good as a blacksmith or a carpenter or something so that you'll fit into the tribe and still be accepted. And maybe that was a good play 20,000 years ago, right? Just don't be too different, don't stand out. Because, difference was never really celebrated in human cultures until very recently, right? That's a new phenomenon. But now it is. Now it is. As I heard somebody say, if you're completely normal in the 21st century, so, right, you got to have a thing. And we have a thing. So it's key to realize, I think, that the world is a different place than when our evolutionary machinery came into being. And we should take advantage of that fact. This is the best time in history to be living as a person who stutters. Or a paraplegic, or a person that's deaf, or whatever your difference may be. It's the best time ever. And people are far more educated on difference if you let them in, right? If you show them, if you are, as I like to call it, radically honest about who you are, people will accept you. And in fact, it makes people respect you even more and look up to you, because everybody's got their stuff and everybody's got that similar internal machinery. I don't want to say it's exactly the same, but we're all human beings that are operating with that. We are products of evolution, or one God or whatever, but we were made how we were made, right? We are how we are, from a genetic, physical, brain, body standpoint. But we're living in a very different world. And nowadays we can actually get cachet out of facing our fears, and it encourages other people, because everybody's got, everybody's got their stuff that they think is imperfect about themselves, and it resonates with a lot of folks. And again, as I've said many times on the podcast, there's two of the big human qualities that are respected, I think, in every culture on earth, is courage and honesty. Those are two of the big ones. And when we're speaking up, showing who we are, shows courage, shows honesty. And it is courageous and it is honest, and we know it and other people know it, and people will totally accept us. And that's been an interesting part of my journey. As I mentioned, had the real good stutter going for the first 41 years, still have it a little bit, but not the vast majority of it. I swear, Chase, I didn't notice any difference as far as how much my friends and family liked me. It's not like once I was stuttering way less, people wanted to talk to me every day on the phone or something. It was like they love me then, they love me now, and it just doesn't matter if I'm stuttering or not. And now I kind of like it, because I don't, I prefer not to waste a bunch of energy pushing through words like that. And I got a lot to say, for better or worse, for the people around me, but so I enjoy it, but the world doesn't really give a damn. And in some ways, the stutter was an instant trust builder. When I would look people in the eye, when I would, show it, which I would after the age of 18, I would say what I wanted. And so everybody that ever met me for, 45 seconds knew I stuttered, because I was probably gonna stutter in the first sentence, if not the first and the second sentence. And, I found that with interviewing dentists, for example, that work in my practices. It was an instant trust builder. After one conversation, after one interview, I'm interviewing them as an employer, and they're the employee, prospective employee. And I swear they trusted me after one call, which is unusual for, you're interviewing for a job, you have one interview and you trust that employer totally. Know if you can trust them or not. They're brand new to you. And now I do those interviews and I don't stutter, much. And I swear I mean, the interviews are still fine, but I don't get that immediate trust from them as I did when I was on those phone calls. Like, hey, Doc, how's it going, man? Oh, good. So you're interested in working in upstate, huh? Oh yeah, like I was still being myself. I was still being me. I was using my tone of voice. I was saying what I wanted to say. It just was a battle for me, obviously. And anybody that would talk to me, would be like, yeah, he's got a stutter going, right? For sure, even on the phone where they couldn't see me. And yet, they know that I'm interviewing them. For one thing, that I'm the one that owns these 5 practices. And, this guy's, wow, good stutter. He's built up 5 practices. That's pretty cool, right? And that's the thing, like, we tend to tell ourselves as people to stutter. And I know an eye surgeon friend who stutters, has a hard time shaking this idea that people are thinking he's less of a doctor because he stutters. And I said, man, if they're thinking clearly, which a lot of people will be thinking clearly, if you're, facing them and looking them in the eye and living with courage, they're going to think, man, this guy has got a pretty serious stutter going, and yet he's an eye doctor. Like, this guy's got some pretty badass qualities, because that would have stopped me, maybe. Right? A lot of fluent people. I mean, you probably heard that from people. Man, if I, and I would it would annoy me to hear people say this, but it was also complimentary. And they say, man, Mike, I respect you so much for speaking up, because I don't know if I'd be able to, if I had that stutter. Now, on the one hand, I was like, what? You're saying the stutter's a problem? What are you talking about? But on the other hand, it was like, no, they're complimenting your courage and your confidence.
Yeah. Out like, again, I've a bunch of different tangents to go on, but I think a great way that summed up everything you said, and possibly summed up this whole conversation, Michael, is when you said that your family and your friends didn't like you, didn't love you anymore when you became more fluent. And I truly believe that most people who stutter, something that holds them back from showing their stutter is they feel internally, subconsciously, it makes them unlovable. I feel there's just I know it was with me that I felt like the fluent version, the effortless version, I can speak and speak and speak, that I tap into sometimes, was much more lovable, was much more accepted by my dad, by my brother, by my mother, by my friends. They wanted to see that version more. And I was picking up on like the small sub communications, or how they would maybe talk to me more when I was speaking like that more. But it wouldn't be because I'm more of a human now. It was because I was enjoying myself more, and they wanted to speak to me more because I was more having fun to speak. I think, just to kind of sum that all up, it's like, you are not any less or more lovable based upon how fluent you are. On a good day or a bad day, you are still you. And the people that love you for you. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. They love you for you. And if we can truly internalize that the people love you for you, and also the people that will run into on the streets, in the malls, in the cafes, at work, that will eventually love you, will also love you for you, regardless if you're stuttering, and regardless if you feel less than. If you are showing up and you're being yourself, you will create the connections that you're dying for. And I feel like that just sums up everything we talked about, and especially what you just said, Michael.
Absolutely. And we're coming to the end, as I suspected. I knew you and I were gonna have a great conversation, so we probably go longer than we were planning, which we have. But for one last thing to touch on real quick, I remember in an older post from you, maybe, I don't know, a year or two ago, you had talked about how our thinking or how our action leads our thinking more so than our thinking typically leads our action. In other words, people can be sitting there, which they will be, watching this conversation between Chase and Mike. Probably a lot of what we say will be resonating. We'll know it's true. Yeah, I need to, put myself out there and go do this. I know it's important. I know why it's important. I'm gonna do it someday. But it's the doing, right? It's the taking the action. And for example, you mentioned the going out, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, right? And realizing that the world keeps spinning. The sun comes up tomorrow, and you don't go to jail just because you stuttered, or because because you picked up the microphone and you sang, or you went out and danced and you stepped on her foot and you were a little clumsy, right? The world doesn't end. And in fact, the only thing that happens, if anything, is you get, a little desensitized to that. You realize that the world doesn't end, and you probably your skills start to improve, and you just learn to give less of a what about what somebody might think if you're imperfect in some way. And so from an action standpoint, and one of the big ones, as I mentioned in my life, was just making myself or somebody else encouraging me, bringing me out for those first steps, at least, to going out to the mall, on the streets, just putting yourself out there, right? Like you mentioned, stuttering on purpose, I think is pretty powerful. As well, making, and I think of it like our conscious mind sending a signal to our subconscious or unconscious, we're doing this thing that you're so scared of. We're going to do it. And you sort of drag along your unconscious, which is sitting back like, don't do it. They're all going to laugh at you. You might die. You might be cast out. You're a freak show. You're unlovable. You're laughable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? All that stuff that the scared inner child or the lizard brain or the amygdala part of the brain, I guess it is crying out for us not to do, because humans are not wired to push out of our comfort zone, to face those fears. We're wired to shrink away from the fears for purposes of survival, right? But it's the action, it's the getting out there and putting yourself out there. And, you go out and say, excuse me, where's the bathroom? And they say, oh, the bathroom is, right down there about 100 feet on the right. Thanks, have a good one. Have a good one. They walk off and live their life. You walk off and live your life. Nobody died. Nobody had to go to jail. Nobody went to the hospital. The world did not go hurtling off into interstellar space. It's okay. It's okay. And then our subconscious is like, wait a second, is it okay? Is it okay to stutter? Really? Did that person just not care? After they were a little confused at first as to why I was talking like that, but then they just answered my question. That's what I remember. Just being shocked. People just answer your question like you're a normal person, right? And you'll get, let's say you're ordering food. Yeah, you might have stuttered for 30 seconds on cheeseburger, but I said cheeseburger, and guess what? I got to eat my cheeseburger, which was the goal of going in there to get this food. It wasn't to impress this person with how well I can say cheeseburger. It was to get a damn cheeseburger and to eat it, So that idea of action, first of all, what was the most valuable? And I think we know is going out there, but what would you suggest to people out there? What is the action that, or type of action that they need to take specifically, and what is a most high percentage path to actually doing it, as opposed to just thinking 10,000 times over the course of decades. Yeah, I need to do this. Yeah, I need to do this at some point. As we said, life can come and go for some people without them ever doing that. What is some action you would suggest people take?
Yeah, so just to quickly go back on what you said, of what I said a few years ago, is I still remember the quote I always used to say, and it goes like, it's a lot easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than it is to think your way into a new way of acting. And so many people try to think their way into a new way of acting when it's just so much harder to do that if possible. So acting your way into a new way of thinking is how we do this, because you will not be in the right mindset when you say enough is enough. You are still perceiving the other people's judgments of you absurdly highly, giving them so much value. And so you won't be in the right mindset when you are speaking to them. Like, you won't have the perfect mindset, and you can't expect to have the perfect mindset. But what is in your control is the action that you take. And if you consistently take this action over and over and over and over again, like you said, your brain will pick up, I didn't die. They judge me, maybe, maybe not, but I'm still alive. And your brain will understand this new way of thinking. Of course, it helps if you can reframe, if you have the skill to reframe situations where you stuttered a lot in, and you feel shame and you feel embarrassment and you feel less than. If you have the ability to reframe it of, like you said, I got my cheeseburger. Like, the goal wasn't to make them like me. The goal was to get the cheeseburger. I won. Like, I won. The stuttering, all of that, how I felt, out of my control. What was in my control was the action I took. And I took that action fully. I won what was in my control. Easy. And that the best actions, I feel, address the biggest thing that puts tension in our body, that makes us stutter more and more and more, puts us more in our head, makes us more mechanically speaking. The most tension that gets stored in someone's body, I feel, for one, comes from past traumas, but something that we can work on right now is the value we place in other people's judgments. Because if you are valuing someone's judgments of you all the way up here, and you value yourself down here, how safe are you going to feel? If they have this power over you, if they think badly of you, you have no shot of feeling good about yourself. So you're in this dynamic where you feel completely unsafe to do anything that could cast any type of judgment. And if your relationship with your stutter is negative, then of course you're going to think your stutter is going to get you judgment. And when the dynamic's like this and you're valuing people's judgments of you so highly, you will feel it's completely unacceptable to stutter because you don't want to be judged. Because if you do get judged, it will affect your self-worth so much because of this discrepancy in power. So evening out the playing field, where you're no longer valuing their judgments of you up here, but you are fueling your own self-worth from the inside by focusing on the action that you're taking, by judging yourself on the action you're taking, not any outcome like I stuttered or they reacted this way, out of your control. And so anything that lowers this, and what lowers this is desensitizing yourself to people's judgments. Because once your brain can understand it's okay to be judged, there's still water in my tap, still fridge in my food, still a roof over my head, I'm still breathing, you can relax, and you can start to value other people's judgments of you less and value yourself more internally. And to answer your last question, the best way to do it is getting some type of leverage on yourself. And this could be in the form, like for me, even though I have very good discipline, I feel compared to a lot of people, if I have goals that I want to complete, I still need to put money down somehow. Like I have a group of friends. It's like maybe 9 friends now. Each month we put $100 into this pot and we set goals that we want to complete for the whole month. And if we complete the goals, we get the money back. But if we don't, the money goes into the pot and is split to everyone else who completed their goals. I still need that. No matter how much discipline I have, I need to put leverage on myself, financial leverage, time, whatever it may be, in order to complete my goals. I'm human, and so many people need that leverage too. And I don't want this to be like ending like a self-promotion or a promotion for you, but this I still do this. I still find ways to put leverage, and the best way that I know that you can for sure take action is if you find someone that you respect, that you look up to, that you admire the way they speak, and they have overcome the same obstacles that you want to overcome, and trusting them, putting some financial leverage down if it costs money to work with them, and going all in with them and trusting them fully, and leveraging yourself to say, I'm not wasting this money and I'm not going to let this person down. So I must take these actions that he's giving me or she's giving me.
Right. So in other words, you are, well, there's somebody to hold you accountable. Right. And you've signed up for it, right? You said, look, I'm going to do your thing. And if you put money into it, then you got skin in the game, so to speak. So you spent this money. It's like, well, I need to now put in the effort. I'm just blowing my money. Sort of like if you're paying for your gym membership every month, you're more likely to go use the gym than if, say mom or dad is paying for your gym membership, or it's just free with your university or wherever the case may be. And I'm similar in that sense from a holding myself accountable standpoint. For example, in dental school, I never would have studied that much ever if I wasn't, in debt. I mean, in that case, more than 100. I know you guys don't have this issue in Canada, but in the US, you have to pay for all your own school or borrow the money in order to do it. And so it's like $100,000 a year for dental school, 4 years of that. And I studied more than I ever thought I could in my life, so much more than in college. And I never would have done that much effort, I don't think, if I hadn't had this, in that case, sort of crushing debt on me. And if I don't become a dentist, well, shit, how am I going to, pardon my language, how am I going to pay all this back? That sort of thing. And I actually did the same thing with my first dental practice. I got myself in debt another like $800,000 in order to start that. And then it's like, jump in the deep end and figure out a way to swim, right? And in both those cases, it pushed me harder than I ever would have just pushed myself if I was just waking up every morning left to my own devices, And I like that group that you mentioned that you're in with several of your friends, where you guys put $100 into achieving some goal that month, and obviously you have to trust people's honesty that they either achieved it, or I guess no one who had achieved their goal would say that they had not. But and if you didn't achieve it, then you lose the money, and somebody else who did achieve their goal that month gets the money. I like that. There's an economic incentive not to underachieve what you said you were going to do. And this is also an honor point. I know honor is not talked about often in the modern world, but it's the idea of honor, right? You said you were going to do it, so do it. Follow through on our word, right? And there's an accountability there. You're telling the other 8 people in the group, this is what I'm going to do. And if you don't do it, then everybody's like, I guess Mike or Chase was slacking last month. There's some social accountability there. And in some ways, caring what other people think for us as people that stutter is a really bad thing, right? But in some other ways, it can certainly be useful. And doing what you say you're going to do is one of the positive ways of caring whether other people, what they think about you. So I really like that approach. And I've thought about doing that with writing a book, because that's one of the things I've been procrastinating on for a number of years, just writing a book. And I've seriously thought about that, like going to some book publisher and saying, look, I'll give you X amount of, large amount of dollars up front. And if I haven't completed my book by this date, a year from now or whatever, then you keep the money. And if I have completed the book, obviously look at it and think if you see it's, think it's high enough quality. If you don't think it's high enough quality, well, then give me my money back. If you do think it's high enough quality, then let's publish it. But a way to hold myself accountable, right? Put this money down in their escrow account. And if I haven't finished my damn book, if I haven't stopped procrastinating in the next year and finish my book, then I lose that money. I guarantee I'll finish in that case, Hold yourself accountable is a great way to get yourself to do stuff. Put external, I love that. Put external pressure on yourself. Don't just depend on yourself to, kick yourself in the rear end every day to go accomplish this goal, but actually strategically apply that external pressure. But good stuff, Chase. I've really enjoyed this chat, man. You're you have a great take on stuttering, and thanks for doing what you do and putting your energy into it. And I know you're a young guy, so hopefully you're helping folks who stutter and helping to push this ball forward for many decades to come. Knock on wood for both of us. I'm 44, so I probably got less years than you do. But let's hope we're around for a while, brother.
Yeah, Michael, thank you for having me. And yeah, I really feel like what we're doing with the stuttering community and where it's going is without a doubt, without a doubt, it's going to come to a point where there's maybe there's a doubt there. I was going to say it's going to come to a point where it's just clear on what people who stutter need to do. But I feel like there's always different ways. There's always different things that are talked about. But from your perspective and your take on stuttering that I've heard about, you spoke about, it really resonates with me. And yeah, I knew coming into this conversation it was just going to be amazing. So thank you again for having me, Michael.
Absolutely, my friend. Thanks for joining me. And I think a lot of folks will enjoy and get some things out of this chat. I think this stuttering journey is utterly fascinating. I'm biased, but I think it's one of the most interesting conditions known to human beings. And it's while we thought it was totally our curse when we were younger, as it turns out, it's actually this journey and the process of helping other people melt their iceberg, if you will, and face their fears and fulfill their potential is about as fun a journey I think as we can hope to be on. So I'm very happy to be on it, and I'm very happy that you joined us, man.
Yeah, me too, Michael. This is very, 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 very fulfilling. And yeah, thanks again, Michael, for having me.
Likewise, my friend. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.